I'm not one of those that says, hey, wait till the end to ask the question, because if you're like me, you'll forget. So forget to ask the question. So we'll keep it very open, very informal, very engaging. So if you have a thought, if you see something and that thought comes to your mind, please share. I'm going to learn from you just as much as you'll learn, hopefully, from this. And then if you have a question, please go ahead and ask. So I want to thank Cleve for inviting me out here today.
Thank you,
This is a beautiful place. Like, I saw the hub when it was being built, but I could only peek in. I couldn't see actually inside, and so I came out here maybe a week or two ago and you shared with me. This is beautiful. So you're very lucky to live here. Just being in an amenity center like this is already improving your quality of life. So this is great. Well, so today is on successful aging. I am Dr. Marilyn Ward with No Excuses. And so my whole mantra, or my business motto, is empowering individuals for a life without limits. Can you see? Let me turn it towards you better. Is that okay? So this topic is dear to me because when I started my business back in 2007, I think, 2007, I was working in a gym as a personal trainer, nutrition coach. And a lot of my clients would come to me and it was mostly on how do I lose weight or how do I gain muscle. So that was like the big thing that everybody was thinking about. And I was probably in my early 30s. And I was like, all right, well, I'm only helping a small group of people. I felt like there's more to this. What is the one thing we all have in common? Anybody? Aging, right? We all have aging in common because
if you're lucky,
yeah,
otherwise you'd be
right. We all know the alternative. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the aging process begins immediately upon birth, and it doesn't end until, like you said, we all know what that word is. So never like to speak things into existence, so we just won't say that word. Whoops. So the overview, we're going to talk about some facts. We're going to talk about the different patterns of aging, the risk factors that increase unsuccessful aging, the behavioral benefactors that increase the successful aging, the importance of keeping a positive outlook and self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is your inner cheerleader. And then adapting change with resilience. Are you on the right track? So I'm going to make you, you're going to do there's some sticky notes. You're going to write down a little number here in a little bit. And then, of course, I always have room for questions. But like I said, ask as we're doing this. So, how do you measure successful aging? So there's different components. Research has shown 7. This list actually, kind of think of it in terms of yourself. So this is what research says, but research only goes so far, right? You kind of have to individualize it. So for most, it's the absence of major diseases, the absence of depression, the absence of dependency, having that high physical function, high cognitive function, active social engagement, and life satisfaction. Now, I get this question a lot. Hi, come on in. I get this question a lot, and I'll ask you this question. If you had to choose one or the other, would you want your body to go or your mind to go?
My body.
Your body? Yeah. Anybody who has dealt with, and I have a family member that who had passed with Lewy body dementia. Terrible. Young, 76, only been retired 10 years, and never really got to enjoy the retirement. And this person was active and healthy and did everything right. So that's why we feel like it was definitely probably a genetic factor, or it could have been an environmental factor because he was a dentist and he worked with the amalgam back in the day. Now they're starting to say that mercury in the teeth and the fillings. But the one thing, so my research is always, it's in behavioral factors, what we can do to fix it. So when I ask that question, most people do say, let my body go, but not my mind. And it's sad, as a child, and you're talking to your parent, and they don't remember you, it's tough. So, anybody know what the 1% rule of aging is? So, as a 20-year-old, you have the ability to, you're pumping out 10 times the amount of blood that it actually needs to stay alive. kind of keeps it as a reserve. But as we get older, it starts decreasing. So after the age of 30, an average of 1% of this is lost each year. By the age of 40, so 10% has lost. By age 50, 20%, 60, 30%, and so on. So what does that really mean though for us? So that gradual decline, so it's your body is still capable of doing what it needs to do, but the reserves are decreasing as we get older. But the good thing is we can do things as we get older to kind of help mitigate some of those problems. You guys have a beautiful fitness studio with classes and workout equipment. You have beautiful walking trails. You have a pool. So all of those exercise modalities that we're going to kind of discuss later, we discuss a few of them, you have right here at your fingertips.
It
So you're
seems
very
like that kind of got opposite, right? Like, did we need them as a kid? All those reserves? It seems like it should have been
right.
saved
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Not to
You're
question God, but I'm just saying.
Right. No.
To question.
I would say God created, when he created the human being, it was like a very scientific mechanism. But now going back, I'm like, I wonder if he would have tweaked a few things. I wonder if now knowing he would have made a few things a little different, for sure. So at what age do you age the fastest? I was kind of shocked by this. Go ahead, anybody want to make a guess?
I think it's at 60 and 75.
You were close, very close. Anybody else?
I don't know. I think when you're like in the years of overwhelm with your children running everywhere and all the
Yes, yes.
it takes its toll.
Stressful parts of life, which is kind of what I thought. So 34, 60, and 78. But so right, 34, probably right. Now people are having kids later in life. I was military. I was just sharing with Cleve. I was military. We had our kids about 25, 26. You were already in our careers. Everybody was having kids. To us, that was normal. Now, fast forward, all my friends who were not military, they're just now having children. You know, in their, late 30s, early 40s. I'm like, what? I was like, to me, I'm like, I won't be able to keep up with my kids.
Right.
Thank goodness I can. My son is 24. My daughter's 20. My son, I now have a grandchild. So I can keep up with them all. So I'm glad I did it the way I did. But so when you're looking at those numbers, I was thinking same thing. I would have picked a little earlier, according to me. And then I think like every decade, my 50s, the 60s, because I'm like, creep, I'll be 50 this year. So those are the times, right, when you're transitioning maybe 50s, 60s, retirement age, and then 78, maybe you're dealing with some of that cognitive decline. So going into the 4 patterns of aging, we all want to be this guy right here on his bike, living his best life, right? But unfortunately, we all age differently. And like I mentioned, there's the 3 factors that affect your aging, and that's the genetics, which we really don't have anything, we can't do anything with that. Environmental, you can move, you can, change that. But let's say you were young and you were living next to an industry city, and all that pollution was in the water, so that will affect. And then you have behavioral, so that's what we do. That's where we have that control. So then normal aging, and we're going to discuss each one of these a little more deeper. Normal aging is when you start to see those signs at that normal part later in life. Mild cognitive impairment, you're starting to see those signs of aging earlier than normal. And then unsuccessful aging, a little bit worse conditions. And I've seen where people can have that, like Alzheimer's disease and dementia, in their 50s. So that would be considered unsuccessful aging. So successful aging, which if we were to just rate ourselves right now, we're all successfully aging, unless you start seeing some of these symptoms. I would say right now, everybody's here, everybody's been talking. If I had to rate you all right now, I'd say we're all successful aging, okay? How they track it, or the indicators, walking speed, that was kind of funny to me, because everybody in my family walks really fast. And they're like, I just saw your grandma, and this is before she passed, I saw your grandma, man, she's walking fast. I'm like, yes, good, I'm glad she's still walking fast. But dependency, so if you're still living independently, so right now you all are still living independently, your emotional vitality, and I would say emotional and kind of like your cognitive health, your mental health. And then subjective health. Are you still able to get up and do those things that you do every day? So if we talk about normal aging, so this is where you're showing your signs of your aging later in life, 50s and 60s. That's kind of normal, right? And then it stays at that modest pace up until you're 80. So until right before you pass. Now this is where I would say my grandmother passed at age 86 a few years ago, but she was great. Still had her body, still had her mind. Moving slower, she was starting to use a walker, which she hated because she was the type with the big beehive, the lipstick, and she didn't want anybody to see her using a walker. She hated it, but she needed it. So, but my mom was taking care of her, and she said right before she passed, probably that last week when hospice came in, she was saying really off the wall things. Her conversations were very skewed, like weren't making any sense. So that's where we feel like, well, she had normal aging. She didn't hit that until late life, right before she died. So your signs, moving a little slower, finding it harder to see and hear, which, that's what
So frustrating.
yeah. And you should and don't ever be embarrassed to get the hearing aids. They make them now so tiny you can't even barely see them. But if you can't hear, it will mess you up everywhere else in your life, right? It gets you frustrated, it gets you stressed. So, and then glasses, I have contacts on, but when I get home, I gotta put my glasses on. And now I just told my doctor, I'm like, I think I need those double things or the bifocals. And he's like, because it's taking me longer to transition from looking, because I can see can't see far away. So I need those contacts. But if I'm sitting at home and I'm reading, then I have to take them out. He's like, you might need bifocals. I'm like, thanks. So
Does the lack of visual clarity, do you think, cause some of those same things like you hear with hearing that feels more distance when you can't engage in conversation, you can't tell what people are saying, but is vision a similar?
I've medically or professionally, I would almost say yes. I feel like anytime where one thing you feel like starts to go, then all of a sudden you either one is going to get better, like how blind people hear better, or deaf people see, right, their senses take over. But at the same time, I think if they can't hear, now all of a sudden I think they question themselves, but they start to isolate themselves. They don't want to come to a presentation because they can't see, but if they feel like well, I can hear it, but they still can't see it. So I think it's a frustration, and I think it can start to would affect both ways. Not an eye doctor or a hearing doctor, but that would be just my opinion.
I guess the best plan is to try to just remedy that as much as you can.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I say some people get so embarrassed to have to use, like my grandmother did not want to get hearing aids because she thought that's another thing that's making me old and people are going to judge me. I'm like, but wouldn't you rather hear the conversation? Especially trying to talk on the phone with her friends, she'd get so frustrated she couldn't hear them on the other end that she didn't even want to talk to them anymore. And maybe you're dealing with that with your parents, that it's they might be facing that. So it for sure can be frustrating for both people, for everybody involved. So the mild cognitive impairment, so this is where you start to see those declines, but maybe earlier than your 80s. So the slower thinking, the slower knowing, slower with remembering. Now, this doesn't mean that if you forgot when you're like, well, I walked into the room, but I forgot what I walked into the room for. Don't put yourself in that yet. That just happens, that, especially if we're doing something else. I always notice if you're doing something else with it, it's that deterring you, and then you forget. That's just because you're getting off task. But unless you see yourself doing this a lot, repetitively, and I've got some links that you can take a picture of and you can take the test. I was going to bring them, but they're very lengthy and you wouldn't be able to do it today. But I brought some links, but you can age your test, or you can test your aging. So if you're having a few of this every once in a while, that's okay. It's when it starts happening so much that your friends start to notice and say something. Then the unsuccessful aging. This is like the depressing topic that we don't want to talk about, especially if you know of somebody or a family member that you're dealing with this. But the signs, that's where the memory loss, the difficulty communicating, the visual and spatial abilities, so getting lost when driving, reasoning or problem solving, handling complex tasks, and planning and organizing. So some of these things might just not be in your wheelhouse. Maybe you're not a planner or an organizer. So again, take this, with a grain of salt, take it with your own, like think about yourself. But it's these things, if you really start seeing that, like if you drove to the store and you came out and now if we don't remember where our car is, that's one thing, because I never remember where my car is, but you should remember how to get home. Now, if you just moved here, some of you just moved here. Now, the first time I came here, I got lost. Second time I came here, I got lost. About the third time I figured it out. So again, don't take it so literal, but if you, all of a sudden, if you've been driving home the same time, same place, and you've lived there for 20 years, and now all of a sudden you don't remember how to get home, that's when, or you don't remember what your car is that you're driving, that's kind of a scary one. Remembering phone numbers used to be a big thing, used to help us back in the day. Well, now you don't even have to remember a phone number because it's right in our cell phones.
I still remember my phone number growing up.
See, now that's good. That's good. So practice that.
Is that really? It seems worthless to me.
No, and those are the things. I feel like technology is great because we can do so many things, but technology has also made our brains lazy. So same with me driving out here for 3 times. I use my GPS, so I don't have to think about it. It's literally telling me now. If I made myself try to remember off of memory, I would be working my brain. It's an executive function that I'd be working my brain, so it creates that brain plasticity, and I would be able to drive out here. But I don't, because I was lazy and I wanted to make sure I got out, got to the right place. But so we do this to ourselves, but we can really help it, and we'll talk about that. But it's just funny how technology is great, but it's also bad.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
can we get copies of your slides?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
Okay.
Sure, yeah. So with Alzheimer's disease versus dementia, a lot of people will say, well, my dementia turned into Alzheimer's disease, and it's not, it's the reverse. So dementia is the umbrella term for the cognitive decline. Alzheimer's disease is a specific type of dementia. So while Alzheimer's disease is a specific disease, it causes it, okay? So not all dementia is caused by Alzheimer's. It also can be caused by Alzheimer's, the vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and frontal temporal dementia. So my friend's father had the Lewy body dementia, and if you've never dealt with that, it takes the body and the brain at the same time. It's like having Parkinson's and Alzheimer's or dementia together, and it's terrible to watch. He was a professor and a dentist and just was amazing, a military veteran. And when I first met him, I was able to have a conversation with him, but with only in 3 years, it just went so downhill. And I was there the day he died. It was terrible. So I just wanted to put that up there just as an extra, because a lot of people think one leads to the other, and it's really, dementia is just like the overall.
Do they still say Alzheimer's is hereditary?
So that goes back to that genetics. My father-in-law you couldn't, Jewish. So when he died, they don't do that testing, right? So your body has to go into the ground. So, because we wanted to test to make sure. So unless that body has been tested, and there hasn't been enough studies done on post-mortem bodies, but they're saying like genetics, that it could be genetics, but the testing of it. So like to say for you, like let's say if you wanted to get tested. Now there are tests you can get done on yourself to see if you have some of the triggers, but again, or any of the markers. But again, then you have to think about the behavioral factors. What did this person do that whole time? Where did he live this whole time for environmental? But there's cross studies that talk about it. It's one of those things. It's the most feared disease in the senior population because it's the one disease we don't have a cure for. All we can do is our own part and to try to prevent it, but you just don't know. Now, and there's pills, there's medicine now that will help, like, again, offset the effects of the disease, but it doesn't cure it. It's never gonna make it go away. And once that brain starts to go into that deterioration, you can like prevent it or slow it, but you can't reverse it. You can't bring it back. And that's the sad part. If we're overweight, we can diet and exercise and lose the weight. But when the brain starts to go, you can slow it, you can try to prevent it, but you can't reverse it, which is why it's so scary. Okay, on to some more fun negative stuff. More fun negative stuff. Well, this will lead us into the good stuff. So the main thing, the behavioral risk factors that negatively affect the aging process. There's my little friend here eating his cheeseburger, watching TV.
He's living the life.
Yeah, living the life. Now he does have a game remote, so I'm thinking maybe he has a little bit of stimulated brain, but these are the top things. The physical inactivity, unstimulated brain, and isolation that increases the unsuccessful aging. Yeah, and he's alone. So the lack of physical activity is the leading behavioral risk factor for older adults. And honestly, you could almost say this for all adults, but the problem with older adults, it increases as we age. Because the older we get, the less active we become, especially if we start moving slower, right? We don't want to do as much because, you know, it's on that cycle. I don't want to do as much, then if I don't do as much, then I get sick, and then I get stressed, and then, so we're on a kind of a vicious cycle. But it's the leading fourth cause of death across the globe, and it is the reason for a lot of the diseases that we get, right? So any of your chronic pains, back pain, but your obesity, the weight loss, and then obesity has its own set of problems. So when we're physically inactive, it just brings on so many other problems. But we'll talk about the good stuff in a minute. So the unstimulated brain. Now, most of us, you know, we here living in the United States, we don't have that problem with that secondary education. We have that at access. If you think about third world countries, they don't have access to that. You know, most of them, some of them don't go to school at all. So that's where that cognitive decline. We here in the United States, we don't have that. But let's say you're one of these people that don't like to play these games. You're like, these are foolish. I don't want to play them. So you want to make sure that you're still keeping that brain active with these types of games. Now, physical activity already helps the brain, but it helps the brain, like you still want to do these cognitive training exercises. And instead of maybe calling it cognitive training because that ages the statement, we can just say I'm playing my brain games, or I'm playing my word games, or I'm playing Scrabble, playing cards with my friends, reading. Even if you're reading, that still helps stimulate your brain. And then isolation. So if there's one thing we learned during COVID, it was how detrimental isolation was to everybody, but most importantly, most specifically to seniors. They only had a little, especially the ones that were in a nursing home, and they already didn't have family coming to visit them. And now all of a sudden, they had nobody coming. Like even the staff, when they did come in, they looked like a Martian because they're all dressed up in like, you know, face gear and the whole bodysuit. I was working at Village on the Isle, a retirement community in Venice at the time, and the nurses had to go in full gear, where we still had to wear a mask and gloves. I worked on the independent living side, but it was scary. We delivered their meals to their rooms, and they were like so excited just to see somebody else because they weren't allowed to come out, even in the hallway. So it was, and that's where I say I have a lot of like my cohort, my classmates were doing studies just on the isolation and what it did with COVID on our seniors. So now the fun stuff. We don't want to be this lady right here. So
I'm not sure that
so I love this picture. I don't know who she is. I wish I could find her. So I am a triathlete. So I do Ironman. I've done 2 half Ironman. But I have been beaten by women way older than me. So if you've ever done a triathlon or a race, so you have a transition and your bike and all your gear that you got to change in and out of is at the station. Well, the novice people, they categorize you by age. So it was like 40 and 50-year-olds on this side, 60 and 70-year-olds on this side, or however, it was like a 10-year was how they broke the age down. When I came out of the swim, which is my least favorite of the events, it's the one I'm most terrible at, the ladies across from me, all their bikes were gone. I was like, oh my gosh, I just got beaten by all these ladies. But, I caught up with them during the run, but so that, like, fitness has no age limit. It is all individual. So that's why I love this lady. She represents awesome, like, physical activity. So these are the things that we need to be doing that affect our aging process. Hold on, looks like affect the again process.
Yeah.
No, I'll fix that. So your physical activities, your health-related activities, proper nutrition, and adequate sleep. So resistance training, so your physical activities, these are the different exercise modalities. And I say the more the better, because they're all gonna do something different for you. So these are my main topics, main ones, but the list goes on and on. There's Pilates, there's Qigong, so there's so many other ones you can do. But resistance training, so not only is it gonna prevent that cognitive decline and improve the function, we already know what it does, the rest of it, right? Builds muscle mass, increases bone density, mental health, improves your confidence. But if we're just talking about the aging part, it's gonna help slow that decline and improve that memory. This is kind of where you think muscle memory, or you gotta go in, you gotta remember that seat that you sat in, you gotta remember what the weights were, what you're lifting. So your brain has to work to do that. The aerobic exercise, so our brains need oxygen, and so that's gonna come from that aerobic activity. Improves cardiovascular health, endurance, sleep. So again, think of it, and you're thinking of it in terms of your aging process. It helps with the executive functions, orientation. Think about going to, remember good old Jane Fonda step aerobics classes? And how you had to like watch her and make sure that you were like doing everything. Great for that executive function, because you have to see her and then you have to do what she's doing. I'm a total visual learner, so and I have to really hone in on like watch her what she's doing, because if I get off or talk or smile or look at somebody else, forget it, I'm done. So it's great for those. So if you guys have an aerobics class here or anything where you have to play follow the leader, is there any something where you're watching them do something and you have to follow?
Even
Like,
yoga.
Yes, yoga is one for that, and we're going to talk about what that does.
Yeah, maybe especially.
You could play Simon Says. That's a good one, because you have to watch what he's doing, but you also have to listen. So these are good. Yoga for the mental, physical, cognitive health, and the working memory, again, because you have to do that pose, you have to hold that pose. But on the physical aspect, flexibility, muscle strength, respiratory function, digestive health. A lot of people don't think about doing yoga for digestive health, but it helps with all that. Just leave it at that. Dance. So again, you've got that your executive functions are working, especially if you're trying to learn a dance and do it. So at Village on the Isle, they had a wonderful line dancing class, and the residents taught it. So they couldn't say, oh, she's young and I can't keep up. No, it's residents teaching residents, and it was awesome. And they would always do a show, a couple of times throughout the year. But so again, it helps with those executive functions, but then all the balance and coordination, the energy level, the posture, the strength and flexibility. So all of these things still improving physical, but improving that successful aging. The health-related activities. So that's your mindful meditation, your memory recall, and socialization. So who plays trivia? Anybody play trivia? No? So trivia is like a great one, and I see it a lot in like senior homes, but it comes from, we'll talk about that in the memory recall. So mindful meditation. So anybody do meditation? You have meditation out here? Sometimes you can throw yoga in with that meditation, or also mindfulness and visualization kind of falls in that. So when you're meditating, sometimes it's a visual meditation where you're listening and they're telling you to visualize, or the mindfulness. Squeeze your toes, squeeze your hands, and you're doing all these things. It's taking your mind and it's making it be aware of your surroundings right then and there. So it's making that brain work as part of the meditation, helping work that prefrontal cortex of the brain. So mindful meditation, excellent, definitely should be into your repertoire. The memory recall, and that's why I say trivia, because that's usually what we do. Memory recall is more of the sophisticated term, but it's really just playing trivia. And you can go on and play, and we're going to play a little trivia at the end if we have time, but you really want just to throw that in there because it helps make you think of things back in the day. So a lot of the times with dementia, you can remember, you have your short-term memory, or you have your long-term memory, but you lose your short, right? So playing trivia, it's going to just help keep all that, which you already had, but start doing the short-term stuff too. I used to ask people, what's on the schedule this week? What do we have going on this week, so they could remember it and help work that brain. We remember our childhood best friend's name, but we don't remember the lady that we just met 2 hours ago. Socialization. So most of you all just moved here. Is this a lot of your time first meeting each other?
Yep.
Yeah. So that right there this is socialization. So attending as much activities as you can possible. I used to tell people that when you first move into a place, or especially like a neighborhood like this where you've got like a huge, where you can have a lot of groups, get yourself acclimated right away. Because if you don't, and it's so easily to become isolated, like I don't know, or you get too shy, start coming to these events, coming to the social hours, because we already know what the effects of the isolation does. So this is definitely going to help
Once you eat a hamburger,
your mental
health.
health. You can do that afterwards. Proper nutrition. So you want to make sure that you're eating the right foods. There's certain foods you can eat for brain health. That's a whole nother topic. Maybe I can come out here and speak on foods for brain health, but like the fruit that he has up there, excellent for your brain health. So when we're young, we need it for growth and development. As we get older, it's to help maintain those processes. So to help the health and physical function of the body. And as we get older, you might need to start adding some supplements because you might not be getting that as much in your diet. So we see a lot of supplements going out. As you get older, you'll see yourself purchasing more supplements. Adequate sleep. Now, how many of you sleep fully through the night? Good. So you want to sleep fully through the night. And if you do get up, my next question is, what for and for how long? Because a lot of the times, it's really hard to get uninterrupted sleep. And as we get older, the problem, most of the time people get up to go to the bathroom. Well, so you don't want to get up because you don't want to have to go to the bathroom because you don't want to get up at night. So then what do? We stop drinking as much water during the day. Well, then what does that do? Well, then that causes us to have UTIs. Men and women, believe it or not, can have UTIs. So there's a problem with that sleep. If you don't drink enough water, I'd rather get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom as long as I know I'm getting an adequate amount of water, because you don't want the other, right? But it's important to make sure that you are getting enough sleep, or maybe stop drinking water, a couple hours before you go to bed. But you really are looking for that 7 hours of sleep every night. Some people shoot for 8. Busy people, younger, maybe 6 hours is their key. But it's not just that amount, it's that uninterrupted, right? You want to make sure that you're not just sleeping an hour, waking up for an hour, sleeping for an hour, waking up. You want it to be good sleep. So, self-efficacy. Are you all aware, self-efficacy, it's your inner cheerleader. It's the one thing that's going to help you get through all of that other that we just discussed. It's the one thing that's going to help you go to the gym, because you're going to look in the mirror and be like, this is me, I'm going to go to the gym today because I want to be healthy and I want to be a successful ager. So you're going to use that to maintain and improve your quality of life. So always think of your inner cheerleader. Practice gratitude daily. Wake up and thankful, you know, whomever you're being thankful to. I think God is, you know, He's my person I'm thankful to. But say why. Why are you thankful? I'm thankful that I got up today. I'm thankful that I have a healthy back. I'm thankful that there's so many things, and I'm a firm believer in speaking positivity out there, and you get it back. So if you give that gratitude and say thanks for what you're, you know, giving gratitude for what you're thankful for, it helps. It lets everybody know, like, okay, good. She's not taking herself for granted. She's not taking her body, her health for granted. You thank it. Thank you for, you know, having a good healthy body so I can wake up tomorrow and have a good healthy body. So surround yourself with supportive, uplifted people, right? Everybody's been so happy and cheery here. Now what if you came in and you sat next to, you know, Mr. Grumpy Pants, and he's like, well, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And I don't, right? So you want to surround yourself with those good, happy people, because when you're happy, they're happy. You know, a smile is contagious. If you smile, they smile. And I run on the trail a lot, and if they don't smile, I smile even bigger. I'm like, you're gonna smile. So definitely keep a positive outlook on life, and that's gonna help with that successful aging. Adapting to change. As we get older, we don't like change, right? We like that pattern. We like to stay used to it. We like to stay in our comfort zone. Well, the term insanity is if you can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. So we have to change in order to make a difference. So you want to be flexible. You know, don't be the person that gets so upset if, like, well, we can't get this thing got canceled, we can't do it today, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you get so mad. No, that just meant, hey, wasn't going to be fun. Now we're going to go do something else. So it's very hard to stay flexible when you're so used to a routine. But being able to handle that and keeping an open mind, focus on what you can control and versus what you can't, it's just going to help you relieve that stress, right? Think, hey, I can't control it. No big deal. Let it go. Maintain that positive attitude, and then practice self-care. So right now, you could say you're practicing self-care because you're learning about a topic that's going to help you age successfully. So this is kind of your self-care.
I think the only thing constant is change. That quote, I feel like,
Yes.
is the truest thing, like your whole life. So
Exactly.
either be adaptable or just get broken a lot.
Right, and if you don't, and you get so stressed out, right? And that stress ages us. So that's a good one. I like that. I'm gonna add that to my thing. So
It's not my quote.
no, but I've heard it. No, but I've heard it. But it's a good quote. I'm sure we could find it, or we'll just put unknown. We can put unknown author. So right now, ask yourself, do a brief inventory. But are you on the right track? Do you feel like you were doing any of those things that we just talked about? So right now, if you don't mind, if somebody wants to pass out that sticky note and a pencil. Oh yeah, you can pass those out as well. I don't know if I have enough of those. Just a sticky note and a pencil, because you're going to grade. You can hand those out too, sir. Absolutely, sure.
I assume this was.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It's called class participation. Class work. I feel like I want you to physically write down this number because it's.
Like the numbers from a certain number, 1 to 10.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a 1 to 10 type thing. It's just if you actually take the work to write it down, you take more ownership of it.
Wait, I'm the
So,
last. I'm not trying to be the best, but you didn't give one to me.
You can be the best and the last.
It's supposed to be a lot.
Yeah,
There you go.
I'm posted.
It was just easier.
Thank you.
And the reason why I was just explaining, the reason why I want you to actually write it down is you take a little bit more ownership when you actually write it down. So think right now to yourself if you're on the right track. So everything that we just discussed, are you on the right track for successful aging? So rate your wellness on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. Rate your overall status. Now, you don't have to share this with me. This is yours to keep. You can stick it in your pocket. You don't have to share it with anybody. But rate what you think your number is now, and not just looking around this room, but just of your friends. Rate your health compared to them. Do you think you're below average, or above average? And now remember, you're never in competition with anybody else. You're only in competition with yourself. I tell this to my runners all the time. When you start out on that race, the only person you need to worry about is you. You're the only one that's gonna start it and gonna make it at the end. Sure, you got cheerleaders off to the side, but it's only you making it through that finish line. So, does anybody wanna share and say why they are what they are? You don't have to, it's just fun. So that's,
I'll share.
okay,
I'll be vulnerable.
sure.
I just wrote below average, and I think it's because I have all these amenities available to me, and I'll get in a cycle where I'm like, I'm going to class, and a company comes in, I'm like, oh, gotta stop the world. And then also being that the house is so new, I feel like every day I'm hosting the warranty guy, this guy, the generator guy, the screen guy. I'm like, I can't leave the house. Like this morning, I had a mini split put in the garage. I'm like, can't leave for 4 hours. Getting out of here. Can't go to thing. So, and I just retired, and I'm so used, not just, but recently retired, and I'm so used to being so regimented and go. Then I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of do whatever. But I almost feel like a bum because I've always used to be so efficient. And I really don't have to be efficient anymore.
Isn't that
And I'm
great?
still getting a ton of stuff done.
Put yourself average. Give yourself a
No.
break.
And I've had cancer
In this
twice,
neighborhood?
which is
Oh.
what caused me to retire. early.
Okay. I'm
And
sorry to
so
hear
I'm
that.
like, I looked at all this stuff, I'm like, I have no excuse. I should be the right weight. I should be working out. I should do all these things. And I just lost my mother to Alzheimer's, so I get all of that too.
All of this.
So, no, but I'm saying, but all of those difficult things give you more reason to choose the right things. So
Right. And
to to feel better, to do better, you have
Wow.
to choose it and you have to be accountable for it.
Well, you
So
I
got-
love
I'm
it.
gonna
I want
try
to
to
put
make
you.
myself
I want to put you
accountable.
up here speaking like that. That's an amazing story.
Coming here.
Yes, sir.
I look at you and say, maybe it's above average. You have worked real hard for a long time, and you deserve a little rest. You
Right.
deserve to enjoy life. Sometimes just clearing your mind
Yeah.
is the best wellness
Yeah.
that you can
Yeah, but I
have.
think when you exercise, it doesn't need to be like a triathlon, like go.
No,
I mean,
not
just
at
to
all.
do an activity every day,
Yes.
an hour.
Absolutely.
You feel great when you're
You
done.
do.
You really do.
The,
So I'm
the
like, yeah, I should do
endorphins
that.
are running through you, and
Yeah.
but right. I think you probably are rating yourself hard, but I think, and I don't know how many else of like your years of retirement, but there's that transition period from retirement. That first few years, you're trying to navigate. You're trying to figure out what is my purpose in life now.
Yeah, big time.
Right?
Yeah, big time.
What is your purpose? And you're also trying to figure out what brings me joy now.
Right.
Right.
Because I
Yes.
wasn't really feeling joy when I was working, but I was busy.
Yeah.
There were people counting on me. I had people
Yes.
Right.
that looked to me to be there,
Yeah.
and I fulfilled that need for them. So now
Mhm.
I've got to figure out what brings me joy.
Yeah.
And that's what's been sort of a pause too,
Yeah.
in coming here and having all of this available, and kind of being a little overwhelmed with, I don't know what I want to do. I'll try a yoga club.
And that's what I say. Try everything.
And I
But I
think
also
sticks.
I also think when you shift to working to retirement and aging, I think that that getting 8 million things done and being super efficient doesn't mean that you're successful. That's not how you
Right.
define success now.
It's not.
And I'm still in that like, well, I'm gonna go home and watch the news, and I kind of feel lazy for
I've
doing
read
that.
75
But
books.
it's so
since
cool
I
that I'm
moved
like,
here.
is this what this is all about? I feel like I
And
need to
I'm
go
kind
get
of
a
jealous
job.
successful right now.
Don't go get a
Yeah, no, volunteer, because you get purpose, and but it's funny, like we kind of go through these different phases, right? Like when your kids first move out, so like you're like the empty nest syndrome. They're like, oh my gosh, my kids moved out. Who do I have to take care of? Then a parent moves in sometimes, right? And then you're back to like, okay, I'm taking care of that person. Well, then something happens and now you're not. But then when you retire, and it is a huge transition period, so you have to give yourself some grace and work on that. But then now you have this great circle of friends. So now you all are friends. Now you've all met each other. You've got a wonderful amenity center. And I imagine as this place starts to grow, you guys will grow into your book clubs and your walking clubs, and you'll have all those groups. And if you don't, bring it to them. I'm sure they're asking for your ideas on, hey, what can we do? What can we make? How can we make our community better? And then you get to take ownership of that, and then you get to be the ones that are leading that group. So if you're one of those people that, I see it all the time in the retirement communities, they all start, they take that year of figuring it out, getting their feet wet, and next thing you know, all these programs and groups and clubs start popping up, and it's great because they all want purpose and meaning in life. That's how we stay successful. So I'm glad you shared. Thank you. So you can take that little piece of paper home. Anybody else want to share?
I was just gonna say, I'm so commiserate, right? I'm in the same season, and I feel to your point, it's not necessarily just filling the void, although I know all that is important, but I think it is, I have felt a sense of free falling. You know what I mean? Like who am I?
That's a good word.
What is my purpose?
Yeah.
And
That's
so
a really
it's a
good word.
whole different place to be. So, to your point, you have a lot of different things, and including, I know there's complicated grief, right, to where you may look at things myopically, singularly, but really we're a combination of all these things that are happening to us. And at least for me, I've never lived anywhere else, so purging my whole life, leaving everyone and everything I've ever known, and coming here was huge. And I have to realize that too, and give myself, a little bit of a break too, much less re-identifying now who I am, because work, right?
Right.
I know guys get blamed for all that identity with work, but I think women too, we just all,
Yeah.
and I don't think you realize it until
You don't
that
have it
status
Until it's
changes,
gone,
and you're
right.
like, oh,
And for me, that when family, we moved away from family, we left the home we raised our kids in, it was all at once.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And my husband's still working, so.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
us girls need to get together for coffee.
Yes,
I
this is why.
felt it too, Maureen.
I'm sorry,
I felt
guys,
it
too,
when
you're all invited.
Yeah. This is where you all have to give yourself a pat on the back because you came
Life-giving
here.
coffee.
You came here. You're taking full action in trying to better your life. So like that's kind of part of that process. And so hopefully I'll be out here more because there's so many other fun topics. You guys made me think of so many more just doing this. And so this is great, and I hope you gain from it as much as I have. So these are the links. If you got your phone or take a picture of that, write it down. So the one is the rate of aging test, and the other one is a health aging quiz. And they're both a little lengthy. So give yourself time to where you're gonna have time to really sit and answer truth. Like, don't be in a rush. Like, make sure you have like that time to do this. And what I can do is I can turn this PowerPoint slide. If you want to leave me your email, I can turn this presentation into like a notes, and then I can email the notes to you.
If you guys want to add your email.
Yeah, if you want to add your email, your name and your email, and I can, or my business card is right there too. You can take my card and email me. Does everybody have that? I'm gonna,
Yeah, thank you.
got it? Good, sir? Sorry, whoops.
Just, he's,
Good, sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
restroom, it's okay, his backpack's still here, he's definitely coming back.
Yeah, these are just good. It's just fun to kind of test yourself and see where you are. Got it? All right. So that really this is the end. So, we talked about the facts, the patterns of aging, the risk factors, the benefactors, how to stay positive, use your inner cheerleader to keep you coming to activities like this, adapting to change with resilience, knowing when, make sure you pat yourself on the back, and just make sure you're staying on the right track with everything. So that's staying on the right track. You just always want to have it in the back of your head, right? In the back of your mind, you want to be thinking about those things. So for more information, or there's certain tests, so like I do a senior fit test, or it's an exercise test. Clee might do it here, I'm not sure. health history questionnaire. So if they don't provide it, I do those. That's my email, but you can take my card. You can, and if you scan the QR code on the back, it just brings you directly to my site. But the senior fit test is a physical fit test that you take. It's like 6 different exercises, and it kind of gauges
Oh, that'd be good.
where you are.
Tell me about the no excuses.
So that's my business. So I started my business back in 2007. I was just out of the military. Or I went from military to Mary Kay sales director to fitness. After I had my first child, I was really, really, really overweight. And so I lost weight, and then I realized, oh, this is fun. I think I want to teach other people how to lose weight. And so I started my business and finished my PhD this last year. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, that was
PhDs in what?
health and human performance. So I actually, my dissertation was on the investigation of a novel cognitive enhancement program improving self-efficacy in the independent living senior population. It's a long title.
I'm glad you went with
Read
something
that
easy to
paper.
remember.
Yeah. It was terrible. So,
I think you should
It's
write
helping
a book.
her-
No
it's helping her
excuses.
oh, I am. I've got
Do
2
you?
books in writing. Still working on those. But
Very good.
one's kind of an eye story. One's kind of a diet, more of a healthy eating plan. But yeah, it's about that. When I first started my business, when I went into personal training, that's what people would say. Yes, I want you to train me, but here's my million excuses as to why I'm this, and this. So I was like, oh, I got the perfect business name. No excuses. So I learned to overcome every obstacle that they would give me. So it was actually good for me because I could learn how to overcome whatever it was they were saying. Who has time for some fun trivia? We have 5 minutes. Everybody like trivia? I've got some little prizes.
Oh wow, like prizes.
I've got these are little mini stress balls. So you're the zest.
Say lemons?
And it's a lemon, I got a banana, pineapple. Pineapple says you're a real fine apple. So, alright, so what is the largest mammal in the world?
Killer whale.
Whale, but what kind of whale?
Blue whale.
Nope,
Blue.
blue whale.
Oh, awesome.
So, woo! You're close.
You can turn it into lemonade.
Blue whale. Yes,
Pineapple.
yes.
It's gonna be pineapple.
Which has more legs, a millipede or a centipede? Who's the math? Millipede. I was like, who's the math people? That one stumps me every time. I have to really think. I don't know why. I should know that by now. Millipede. What is the closest planet to the sun?
Mercury.
See? But see what this is doing? This is working your cognitive stimulation. And what year did the Titanic sink?
Rose and Jack.
In 1916.
Lower.
1939.
No, lower.
1912.
1912.
Wow.
1912. Yes, that's all I remember is
Who wants?
Who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird?
Oh.
Oh,
What else do I know?
I should know why.
I
Ghost
Ernest
lit
Hemingway,
a paper for my
Scroll
daughter on it.
Salinger,
Did you say Sander?
Salinger, but it's not.
George Orwell, no.
No, it's not a whole.
Oh, man.
Oh, and they just released another book that person wrote.
Oh yeah, you read
posthumously.
75, you need to have this answer. You just said
I know,
75.
but, and I read that in the last 5 years.
All right, let's
No
see,
one?
we get to know.
Harper Lee.
Harper Lee.
I know, they were like, oh man, I never knew it to begin with,
Right,
so
no.
I can't even claim it. I'm not even gonna lie. I've learned so much just from putting trivia questions on my PowerPoint. And that's it. That's my last one.
You
Well,
don't have
thank-
double jeopardy?
No! Double point. Thank you all for coming. I hope you all learned
Thank
something.
you.
Wish you well on your successful aging path.
I got it. You said you could give it to me.
And I think you have refreshments still up there.
Feel free